Hey everyone. Today I'm going to just do a quick tutorial on gamepad and keyboard controls together, like within the same game and functioning at the same time. I've had a few people ask me about this, so yeah, I'm just going to make a tutorial on it. So I'm going to start off by just making an object, just call it obj player, and just so I don't have to do any spriting, I'm just going to draw a circle in the draw event. Yeah, simply because we want to make a sprite, we can just draw a circle. It's going to be 32 by 32 circle, which means it needs a radius of 16. And the outline can be false, so that'll just be a 32 by 32 completely black circle. And to prove that to you, put it in the room there, and hit play, and it should get a circle. Perfect. Alright, and yeah, I made a room and put the object in the room, so I can do that now as well. Okay, so now we want to do the actual movement. There's a few ways you can do this. I'm going to start off with one of the ways a lot of people tend to go first. Not necessarily the easiest or cleanest way, but it works, so I'll show it to you, just so that we can be familiar with it. But to start off with, I'm just going to do keyboard controls. So keyboard, I can't type. So I'm just going to set up the most basic controls here. So when you press the right key or hold it down, we want to move to the right 4 pixels will do. So if keyboard check, VK right, keyboard check means you're holding down the key. VK right is the right arrow key. And X plus equals 4, which will shift our objects 4 pixels to the right. And then we can pretty much copy this and repeat it. Just change things. So minus equal 4 will move it to the left instead, because right is positive on the x-axis and left is negative on the x-axis. A lot of people probably already know this, but if there's a beginner watching this, then they might not, so I'm going to explain this sort of stuff anyway. Moving down, down is positive on the y-axis and x is negative, so y plus equals 4 will move us down 4 pixels, and then the last one is up, and up is the opposite of down, so it's y minus equals, and that'll move us up 4 pixels instead. And that there should give us the most basic of keyboard controls. So I'll just save that and run it. Object is already in the room. And there you go, I can move around. It's pretty slow, but that doesn't matter. For this example, if you want to make it faster, you just increase these values here. In fact, you know what, I'm going to change that because a beginner should know about the whole variable thing first. So instead of writing 4 in every single one of those spots, it's much better to use a variable, so SPD sets the speed, and I'm going to set that to 8 to increase the speed. And instead of writing 4 everywhere, you take your speed variable and you replace 4 with variable, or the variable name. So the speed is equal to 8, which means it's x plus equals 8, y minus equals 8, y plus equals 8, and y minus equals 8. So where it says speed, you pretty much just see it as this number instead. If that was 16, then it would be 16 there instead of SPD. Well, no, SPD would still be there, but visually speaking, you can imagine that as the number 16 or the number 8 instead of the word SPD, because it means the same thing. So I'll show you that when they move a lot faster just by doing that. As you can see, I move at double the speed now. And now all you have to do to change your speed is edit this variable here, and then you don't have to change it 4 times within your code. It's much, much easier. So that is basic keyboard controls. Now, so from this point, most people would just want to get your gamepad and start using it. So to do that, I'm just going to use the button presses on the gamepad because, you know, toggles are they're doable, but you know, to start off with, let's just use the buttons. So we'll go GP button press, I think it is. I haven't used these functions in a while. There's not. I think it's the whole world gamepad for functions. Yes, it is. Right, so gamepad button check. It's pretty much the same as keyboard check, except it's a gamepad button instead. Device is 0 for the first device, and then GP, I cannot remember the button names for the life of me, so please excuse me. So on GP, what do we got? Pad left, pad right, pad up, and there should be a pad down, I would assume. Yes, alright, so we're going to use the pad, which is on an Xbox 360 controller. That little black pad on the bottom left of the controller. Whoops, just get my controller out, please excuse that. Okay, yep, so I got that out on the desk, ready to go. And I need to replace the batteries in it, I'll do that in a sec. For now we can just program this. Alright, so VK right would be GP pad R, and that there would do it. So you pretty much just repeat this step for every event, and that pretty much gives you what you need. We don't want up there, we want left, so pad L, down is pad D, and up is pad U. And I'm just going to pause the video and get some new batteries for my controller, and we'll be back. Okay, I'm back with batteries. So now if I hit play with the gamepad hooked up, I should be able to control it with the gamepad, which is not happening at all, actually. You know what? That's end here. End should be all. Because at the moment, if you have end, it'll only move if you're doing both at the same time, and I feel like that doesn't make for very intuitive gameplay. Normally, you wouldn't want to force people to do both at once. There we go, now it works. So that there is the gamepad, and that is the arrow keys on the keyboard. Alright, so that's one way to do it. And for most people, they'll just do it that way. However, it's not very clean. As you can see, it's sort of like, you know, it doesn't look very clean. So the other way to do it is to set up a bunch of variables at the start. So we go there, right, there, left, there, up, and there, down. And we copy that, and we put that in there, and you pretty much just replace for every single one, but with the variable name that you just used. So that one's down, and that one's up. So now your code already looks a lot smaller. And then instead of doing your key presses down there, you do them up in your variable. So keyboard, oops, so it should be right equals keyboard, check, and don't forget to spell keyboard right. VK right, and or let's get it right this time. Gamepad button check. Device 0 and GP pad right. So I'm actually just going to test that to make sure it works, because I haven't double checked to see if this will work or not. I should probably give the other one some values. So we'll just set them all to 0 for now. Now I'm just going to test this real quick. Right. So you can see it works the same way. So then you just take this, back it in there, and replace the values. So left, up, and down. And don't forget the pad values as well. So we got the left, up, and down, and I've double that on every single one, so we can get rid of that. Alright, so now if we save that and run it, so we can move, and we can move. Sweet, so that's gamepad, and then this is keyboard. It's really is that simple. I find that way just a lot cleaner to keep all your keyboard presses up here, if you really want to neaten it up, you can label it. So we go controls, and then like you can go apply controls. So there we've got our controls up here that we can change nice and easily, and we apply them here. And that just keeps everything sort of bunched together, and in my opinion easier to read. What about the toggle? Let's look into the toggle, shall we? So we'll create two new variables. We go there, or for horizontal toggle. So we just get the function names. We got gamepad access value. Yeah, that's the one we want. So gamepad access value here gets the value from the axis of one of the toggles. So you give it a device number, which is 0 for the first device, and axis index. So I'm pretty sure that you've got some constants built in for the axis. So you got axis HV, RH, and RV. So it's axis LH, LV, RH, and RV. So left horizontal, left vertical, right horizontal, and right vertical. So we're going to use left because that's in most games the movement toggle. And as we're doing the horizontal one, we want left horizontal. And that there will return the axis value. Now there's pretty much two ways you can do this. This from memory returns a value between 0 and 1. Between -1 and 1 for each toggle. So moving the moving the toggle to the left will return a value between -1 and 0, and moving the toggle to the right will return a value between 0 and 1. So that's how we differentiate between which way the toggle is going. A negative value means we're pushing it to the left, and a positive value means we're pushing it to the right. However, it's not uncommon to get a value of like 0.1 when you're not even touching the toggle. So to fix that, what we can do is check the axis first and make sure it's above a certain value. So say you didn't want it to apply until you push the toggle all the way over to the right. We can do that by checking that value. So down here we can check hor. We say if hor is higher than 0.5, so that's halfway pushed, then x plus equals speed. And you can apply the toggle so that the sensitivity of it will change as well, but I'm not sure if I'll bother doing that. Depends on how long this part takes. Alright, so and then for left we want if hor is lower than -0.5. Alright, and that should allow us to use our toggle to control the left and right movement. And for now we'll also disable the keyboard and gamepad options, but we can bring those back in just a sec. So with the toggle, I'm pushing it left and right, and there's a bit of a dead zone in between until I get to 0.5, and also I can let go, and there's no movement. So now we'll apply this again, but we'll use it for vert instead. So axis LV, and we pretty much just repeat this code, but using a new vert variable instead. So vert is higher than 0.5, move down. Vert is lower than -0.5, move up. Now if we run this, then we should be able to use our toggle in every direction to move. And as you can see, that works. So what about applying every single one of those controls at once? It's pretty simple. We just go right or left or up or and down, or like so. So what this is doing is it says right variable, which is set to 1 if keyboard check right is pressed, or the gamepad check is pressed and then pad R, and the same for the other one. So they're all set to 1 if either of these things happen. Or again, this horizontal or vertical value is higher. So by checking for both of those at once, we should now be able to use every control type at once. So I can use the toggle, I can use the gamepad. Actually, the gamepad there is reversed. I've messed something up there. I'll take a look at that in a sec. And I can use the keyboard, which is also reversed. So that is an interesting side effect that I was not aware of. I feel like that might have something to do with the way we're applying the OR values. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that one. Let me just work that out. I'll be back. Alright, it was a really simple mistake. I've simply used up here instead of down, and the opposite for the down key. So instead of putting up there, we want down, and we want up there instead. And that should fix that up for us. So we've got up, down, right, and left on the toggle, up, down, right, and left on the gamepad, up, down, right, and left on the keyboard. And those are pretty much all the control options you'd want for your games. And most people wouldn't even use the gamepad. You'd probably just use the toggle instead. So because of that, let's try applying the sensitivity of the toggle to the speed. And to do that, I'm gonna replace this code pretty much, so we won't be able to use everything anymore, but you can combine things later. This is just to show you how to do it. So what we're going to say is pretty much the same as before. We're going to say if horror is higher than, let's go 0.2, so we've got more sensitivity options within that. And then normally you just say x plus equals speed, like so. However, that would just do the same as before. We've got no sensitivity options there. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to say speed times horror. Now remember that when the toggle is pushed all the way to the right, we'll get a value of 1. If it's somewhere in between not being pushed to the right at all and being right, we'll get like a 0 point value. For example, if you push it halfway, we'll get 0.5. So timesing speed by 0.5 halves speed, like halves the value of speed, because if you times like 2 by 0.5, we get 1. So by doing that, we'll times the speed by the value based on the toggle. So I can push it a little bit versus a lot, and you end up getting a different value. Actually, I don't think that's working. You know why that's not working properly? It's because I'm still applying the speed down here. I'm going to disable that. Actually, no, I'll just disable the whole lot. Like so. Right, so now I should be able to push the toggle a little bit and get a slow movement. And then all this a lot should give me a 5, and that's not working either. Alright then. Sure. And I just figured out the reason. I didn't do a times symbol, I did a plus symbol. Okay, that should make it work. Alright, so a little bit versus a lot. So as you can see, I can push it a little bit and get a slow movement, and when I push it all the way, I get the full movement speed. And then you pretty much just repeat that process there. Oops. Pretty much just repeat that process for every single other key, and you'll get the sensitivity of the toggle. So if you push it a little bit, you move slower than you would if you push it all the way. Combining those things, you'd probably want to split up these if statements here. So instead of putting them in the same thing, you'd say if right, x plus equals speed, and then you'd do another one if horror, x plus equals speed times horror. Or you might want to say if right, x plus equals speed, and do an else if horror is higher than 0.2 or 0.5, and then do the x plus equals speed times horror. And the reason you might want to do an else if is that means that the player won't be able to do both at the same time. Instead, it will default to the arrow keys and the gamepad. And then if neither of those are being pressed, then it'll look for the toggle instead. And if you do them both at the same time without doing an else if, then you will allow the player to move at pretty much double the speed if they do both at the same time. So if they use the arrow key and the toggle at once, then they'll move at double the speed that they would be able to normally. But that pretty much sums up this tutorial. Remove that. I'll just bring up this code for you so that you can see it fully. This is pretty much it. So we've got the gamepad access value up here. So we've got horizontal, vertical, right, left, up, and down. And then we've got the gamepad in that as well. And that's all checked for within here. And then we just apply the speed values based on what we get from
any of those variables there. And that tends to be a much cleaner way to handle things than doing a whole bunch of OR statements within your if statement. So I hope this helped you guys out, and I'll see you in the next video.